Welcome to Keith Knight, Don't Tread on Anyone in the Libertarian Institute. Today I am joined by Dr. Ken Berry. Check out his work at drberry.com. Links will be in the description below. Mr. Berry, please remind me of the name of your book that everyone should read.
Well, I have three books. Probably my most popular is called Lies My Doctor Told Me. And that one's been out for a few years now and is very contrarian in its tone and its flavor. And I think your audience would probably really enjoy that. I also have one called Kicking Ass After 50 for men and women who are over 50. And then also Common Sense Labs, because so many doctors don't know what labs they actually need to order to uncover metabolic disease. And we've got a couple more we're working on that we can talk about in a year or two.
Awesome. So when it comes to Lies My Doctor Told Me, before getting into the specific deceptions, how is it that so many experts in a certain field could be wrong about something and all wrong in the same direction?
Well, we see this in many fields, don't we, Keith? We see this in economics constantly. Obviously, the mainstream economic narrative now, I think you and I would both agree, is completely and horribly incorrect, thinking that inflation is due to price gouging and foolishness like that. But the vast majority of economists who would go on CNN or MSNBC would say, oh, yes, it's that price gouging. We all know that's foolishness. That same exact thing is happening in medicine, in nutrition, in physiology. People get very popular pushing a certain narrative, and that narrative is very financially beneficial to certain people. And before you know it, that's the mainstream narrative in medicine and nutrition. And we've seen this multiple times. And this is not a modern thing. This has been happening since there's been any kind of mainstream communication device. So this basically started with newspapers back however many years ago. If you could be best friends with the reporter, or you could support the reporter, or you could donate to some charity that the reporter was really fond of, then it's human nature, right? It's human nature to be like, I like that guy. I'm gonna give him a little sweeter deal in this interview than I would give anybody else. That it's bureaucratic institutional creep. That's what and it happens in every facet of human life.
Interesting. Bureaucratic institutional creep. I love that, because if you say, well, we should trust the experts. So if Raytheon and the CIA tell us we need to go to war, well, then let's just trust them. Let's not be skeptical of it. You say, well, all right, yes, they're the experts, but they have a very heavily invested monetary incentive to lie in one direction. Or if you say, atheists, stop questioning religion, theologians are experts, and they've looked into this. All the priests, all the rabbis, all the imams have declared there is a God. They're like, well, yeah, but so what? Screw those experts. There's something about health experts where it's seen as, okay, these are a different type of experts because science is objective. You look at studies, you engage in isolating variables. Are health experts someone that should be treated differently for that reason? Or do you think health experts like Anthony Fauci are just as likely to be corrupt as anyone else?
If health experts are doing their job properly, then I think that it's probably in our collective best interest to kind of give them deference. But the problem is that when a health expert, whether that's a MD, PhD, DO, whatever, when they say something that's not correct, they should be immediately and forcefully rebutted. But where we're at in medicine and nutrition is the same place we are in economics, is when somebody tweaks the narrative and it helps their buddies financially, or it helps their cause, whether it's ethical, moral, or religious, and nobody kicks back right then, what you wind up with is you find yourself in a dilemma. So back in the 1950s and 60s, or that's when the doctors really should have started standing up and saying, look, pharmaceuticals definitely play a role in helping people be healthier, but they are not the end all be all. Your metabolic health matters. What you eat matters. How you live your life matters. But now nobody really spoke up. And so now we're decades down the road. And then when you stand up and you say something publicly like, fluoridated water that's stupid and probably harmful. Or you say, eating breakfast cereal that literally contains nothing except ground up grains, sugar, and vegetable seed oils, that's bad for your health. We've waited too long to stand up and speak out. So now you come across, and at least initially, as a kook, as a quack, as a conspiracy theorist, because what you're saying is so outside of Overton's window that people are like, what the hell is this guy even talking about? Lucky Charms? Yeah, Dr. Berry's saying not only are Lucky Charms not good for you, he's calling it slow poison. What kind of crazy rhetoric is that? That's dangerous rhetoric. Poor people, they've got to eat something, so Lucky Charms is better than nothing. I doubt that. And so do you see my point? And we see this in economics when Rand Paul or Thomas Woods or Thomas Massey, when they say something that's absolutely factual about economics, it's just 1 + 1 is 2. They have let the narrative slip for so many decades that they sound kind of kooky to the average person just consuming corporate media. And that's where we're at in medicine. And so increasingly, I think you're seeing doctors stand up now that we have this wonderful tool of social media. You're seeing doctors start to stand up and say, hey, actually, this is all a bunch of bullshit. We got to do something about this. And I think you're going to increasingly see that whatever happens with the election, which is today as we record this, whatever happens with that, I think that Overton's window has been moved enough that it is now acceptable for doctors to talk about nutrition, to talk about water fluoridation, to talk about blue light, to talk about all these things. I think we've moved the window enough now where we can talk about that without being immediately labeled a conspiracy kook.
And that's why I was willing to look into alternative methods of getting in shape when I was 290 pounds, not too long ago, 18 months ago, I believe I was 290 pounds. For people curious, they will almost universally say, we need a minimum wage, as if that doesn't hurt the people with the fewest skills and the least amount of experience to get their foot in the door, to get on the job experience and demand higher wages.
Yes.
Plus, monopolies are bad. They lead to lower quality and higher prices than you'd otherwise have. Also, the state should monopolize compulsory education. The state should monopolize the money supply. The state should monopolize the judicial system and have a monopoly on guns, by the way, also. That could never go wrong.
And what's funny is you brought up minimum wage. I actually wrote a letter to the editor of our tiny little newspaper when I was 17 years old. They were trying to raise the minimum wage from, I think it was, I don't remember, $2.85 an hour to $3.35 an hour. And I wrote a letter to the editor. Even as a teenager, I was like, don't you see what that's going to do? That's not going to get any of the things that you want. And I wish I had a copy of that letter and just to see how my 17-year-old self worded that. But there are so many things that they sound beneficial, they sound loving and caring and supportive, but the real world, whether it's economics, nutrition, medicine, whatever the field of specialty is, the real world doesn't give a damn about your feelings. They either make sense and they work, or they don't make sense and they don't work. It's just like with your weight loss. I'm sure you tried multiple things that you saw advertised in the corporate media, that you saw advocated in the corporate media. And they may have worked temporarily, but was it a long-term solution? No, obviously not. It wasn't. It was complete and utter bullshit. And I think that we all need to start vocally, publicly calling out bullshit every time we see it, so that people like you, your former self, I weighed 297 at my healthiest, so I had you beat by a little bit. But if you could go back in time to your former fat self and my former fat self and say, hey, this is simple. If you follow the basic laws of nature, physiology, biochemistry, human nature, and eat the following things and stop eating these things, the weight will just start to fall off. If we had known that and somebody had told us that, we would have had a choice at that moment. We would have had a choice between the truth and what actually works and bullshit that's going to make somebody some money, but it's really not going to serve us in the long term at all.
That's another contradiction they get us with. They're like, you need to be empowered. And by that, we mean vote once every 4 years between two lying politicians. Well, I want school choice and I want a diet that isn't going to make me obese. No, that's not the kind of choice we're talking about.
Right.
I want to look specifically at this criminal conspiracy, is what I refer to it as, the food pyramid. In every single classroom when I was growing up, you had pictures of the presidents,
Sure.
a copy of the Constitution, and the food pyramid. Let's look at this. This is the USDA's food pyramid, by the way. This is not just something I came up with on alexjones.com or anything. What, if anything, is wrong with what we're seeing in front of us? Please walk us through it.
Well, pretty much everything is wrong with this. The USDA has now replaced the pyramid with the My Plate, which effectively gives the same message. My good friend Nina Teichholz wrote a book called The Big Fat Lie, I think is what it's called, where she goes in detail with documentation as to how the food pyramid came about. And when the nutrition experts initially got it together, when they got finished with it, they're like, okay, we think you should eat 3 to 5 servings of whole grains a day. And then they proceeded to turn it over to the big ag lobbyists. This is a true story. This is documented. You can look this up, and said, hey, what would you do? How would you tweak this? And of course, the big ag lobbyists said there's not nearly enough servings of whole grains, wheat, rice, oats, and corn, which are commodities. They're not even actually foods. They're commodities. Okay. And so then it came back, you need 6 to 11 servings of whole grains a day. And for anybody like you previously or me previously who's obese, that's going to lead to nothing but worsening obesity, worsening hyperinsulinemia, worsening metabolic syndrome, and ultimately a painful life and a hastened death. That's what that's going to lead to. It wasn't based on any meaningful science, even back then. And I would disagree with the 3 to 5 servings of whole grains a day, but I vehemently disagree with 6 to 11 servings of whole grains a day.
So whole grains, you're talking about bread, pasta. What else? What else is whole grain?
Anything made of wheat, rice, oats, and corn. Those are the major grains or seeds that in America that we eat. There are obviously others in other countries, but these things are commodities that are sold on the commodities market. These are, if you even call them food, you should refer to them as starvation foods, fallback foods, prisoner foods. They're much better than literally starving to death, but in no way do wheat, rice, oats, and corn in any way optimize your health whatsoever. They are full of starch. Starch breaks down into sugar. When you eat a bowl of rolled oats that you had to cook on the stove for 2 days, I'm not even talking about the instant oats with strawberries and cream flavor added. I'm talking about the real stuff. When you eat it, before you even swallow it, you're starting to break the starch down into sugar. By the time it reaches your bloodstream, you might as well have eaten a bowl of Lucky Charms. There's no difference. Corn is the same exact way. It's just long molecules of sugar put together in the form of starch. Wheat is just as bad. Now, we're not even going to get into the inflammatory phytochemicals they contain. We can if you want to. We're not even going to talk about the glyphosate that's sprayed on all of them before they get to the supermarket, right? Oats are wheat, rice, oats, and corn. Those are, if everybody listening to this would just remove the added sugar from their diet, remove the wheat, rice, oats, and corn, and remove the vegetable seed oils from their diet, their body would immediately start to heal. Because just like every other animal on planet Earth, our default setting is healthy. If it weren't, we'd be extinct as a species. Our default setting is healthy. Only the degree to which you slowly poison your body, do you make it sick, and do you keep it from healing? And so that millions of people now all around the world have watched my YouTube videos. And initially their thought might be like, this guy's full of crap. There's no way that just doing this is going to improve my health. And then they come back 3, 6, 9, 12 months later and leave a comment on my video to the effect of, oh my God, you were exactly right. When I finally tried this, it works. Yeah, that's because your default setting is good health.
So the reason that is so important for people to know is I did not know that. And I said, how the hell am I so overweight? I don't eat cake and I don't eat sugary sodas. So I must just need smaller portions, which they always told me. You'll be shocked to find out that smaller portions made me really hungry and pissed off, and I couldn't even sleep. So
yeah, it's called starvation.
It's like telling a crack addict, all right, here's the goal.
Yeah.
Stop smoking crack. Okay,
No, but they're like, no,
but that's so impossible to do when
right.
you
But what they're saying is they were just saying to you, oh, Keith, just smoke crack in moderation. Just have a small serving of crack. Like that's going to work with a crack addict.
Yeah. just unbelievable. Okay, so let me throw some logic at you. Tell me what, if anything, is wrong with this. Fat in foods is what makes you fat. Thus, a low-fat diet will make you thin. What, if anything, is wrong with that logic?
Everything's wrong with that logic. Human beings are so susceptible to logical fallacies, and we're susceptible to things that rhyme. This is in the psychological research. This is not debatable. If you eat fat, you'll get fat. See how that's a little poem? Easy to remember. Boom. People are going to latch onto that because everybody's busy. Everybody is stressed. They're looking for easy things to remember. And so low fat will help you lose fat. See how that rhymes? It's a cute little poem, but it's completely false. And only if you understand the underlying physiology and biochemistry of the human body do you realize that's not how it works at all. That's not even close to correct. It's kind of like the old commercial where they showed pouring grease down a drain and how it clogs up the drain. Right? Well, first of all, our body's not a drain pipe. Secondly, our body is at body temperature, not room temperature. It's like literally that is a completely ignorant analogy, but people could see that. They could understand that immediately. They're like, so I need to use soybean and canola oil because they're liquid at room temperature. Like that somehow matters at all to human biochemistry.
Okay. So it's not fat that makes you fat.
No.
If I look at a hamburger, I'll see a very heavy patty, which has juices coming out of it, and I'll see bread. Okay, we've gone over how bread breaks down into sugar, and that makes you fat. Would you say that beef patties are something that we should avoid because they look real fatty and juicy and they're heavy, so they would add weight to us? What, if anything, is wrong with that thinking?
Yeah. So if anything, the only thing that you should eat out of a McDonald's value meal is the beef patty. You should throw everything else away and eat the beef patty only. And Nisha, my wife and I, we came up with beef, butter, bacon, and eggs because we're honoring human nature. People love a little poem. That almost sounds like a haiku or something, right? Beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. How many syllables is that? Could that be a haiku? I'm not sure. But so people latch onto that. And initially when you hear that, eat nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, that sounds like a heart attack waiting to happen. People don't realize that the leading cause of heart attack is uncontrolled prediabetes and uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. Whether you're on medication or not, that's the leading cause of heart attack. And so when you eat nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs for 90 days, you're not spiking your blood sugar. You're not spiking your insulin. You're lowering the levels of inflammation in your body. And that's why you'll see comments on my beef, butter, bacon, and eggs video that are 4 years old. People coming back around saying, holy crap, when I finally gave this a try, it worked. And also I wasn't starving all the time because I wasn't starving myself. Anytime that a dietitian or a doctor says, hey, you need to move more and eat less. That's the literal definition of starvation. So what they're effectively telling you to do is to begin starving yourself and to starve yourself for the rest of your natural life. That's what move more, eat less is. It's long-term semi-starvation. And so a lot of people, then they try that and they lose 10 pounds. And then a month later, they fall off that diet and they blame themselves. This is the thing that really pisses me off, is that people don't blame the guru who told them, oh, it's all about calories in, calories out. They blame themselves. They're like, oh, I'm a loser. I don't have enough willpower. I don't have enough gumption. And that's not true. You were given the wrong game plan. You were destined to fail if you tried to do that. You were never going to succeed. That's the thing that I'm trying to get out there, is that I don't care how much you love that guru. I don't care how many books they've sold. If what they're telling you is to semi-starve yourself for the rest of your life, you cannot do that. Nobody has enough willpower to do that. Nobody has enough stamina to do that for more than a month or 2 or 3. You're not a failure. You were just given the wrong game plan.
What does being in ketosis mean?
So ketosis it's a very complicated biochemical thing that the vast majority of people don't understand, and most doctors don't understand it either. What it's going to turn out once we've done all the research is being in ketosis is probably the default setting for human beings. We were probably in ketosis for the majority of our time on this planet. What it means is you're preferentially burning fats, ketones, triglycerides, fatty acids for fuel instead of predominantly burning glucose for fuel. And so if you're not a dietitian and you've forgotten your human physiology, you're like, I don't even know what makes you be in ketosis. What do you eat? I don't know where does glucose come from? Because most people, if you say glucose, they're like, oh, cake, pie, cookies, pancakes, syrup. I get it. But the problem is many people they don't get it completely. So probably in your case, Keith, you were probably like, okay, I cut out all the sweets, but I'm not losing any weight. And that's because they don't understand that bread is pure sugar. Potatoes are literally pure sugar. And so a lot of people have a sweet tooth. I'm one of those people. I'm a sugar addict, but many people don't have a sweet tooth. They much prefer the savory pizza or potatoes or bread, and they think, well, I'm not eating any sugar at all, but literally 90% of their diet is sugar. And they don't even know that, because all the bread, the pizza crust, the tortillas, all that stuff breaks down immediately into pure sugar in your body. You might as well have just eaten a jelly donut. There's no difference. And so when you cut the sugar, added sugar for sure, but also any source of starch in your diet, from bread to potatoes to pizza crust to tortillas, when you cut all the sources of sugar out, then your body can shift gears and start burning ketones for fuel. And we really haven't found an exception to this yet. Pretty much every cell we've studied can burn ketones. There's a very few cells that we think cannot, but the vast majority of your cells can burn ketones. So you're in ketosis. This lowers your insulin level, which is basically the hormone that prevents you from losing fat. As long as your insulin is high, and it stays high if you're eating too much sugar or too much starch, you're not going to be able to get rid of stored fat on your body. And that's why so many people, they're like, I cut out I cut out Lucky Charms, and I cut out drinking Pepsi for breakfast. Now I'm having a big bowl of Special K and a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. This is what I call the false choice. It is 1% less bad what they're doing, but it's never going to help them reverse their obesity or their type 2 diabetes, because it's still pure sugar. It's just been health washed. Special K, oh, that's super healthy. And then fresh squeezed non-GMO organic orange juice, what could be healthier than that? That's just that. You might as well drink the Coca-Cola and sprinkle some vitamin C in it. It's literally the same thing.
How does sugar make you fat? Can you walk me through the biological explanation? So
Yeah.
if I have 1,000 calories of Coca-Cola, that is going to make me fatter than 1,000 calories of beef.
100%.
Or is the beef just more satiating?
It's all that. And so surprise, molecular biology and biochemistry and physiology is complicated. It's really hard to come up with a little rhyme or a little jingle that explains it all. It's hard to explain it in a 30-second soundbite. And so anytime somebody tries to do that, you should view them with suspicion. When you eat sugar, whether it's Lucky Charms or whether it's whole grain, non-GMO bread, you're like homemade bread. Oh my God, it's still sugar. It breaks down into sugar in your body. That causes a blood sugar spike, which then causes an insulin spike. Now let's get this straight first, because a lot of people don't know this. Your body, your liver, can make as much sugar as your body needs. You don't have to eat any carbohydrates in your diet. No sugar. You don't need any of it. Your liver can make as much glucose as you need. You never need to eat glucose or eat starch or eat sugar. But when you do eat sugar, it spikes your blood sugar, that spikes your insulin. As long as your insulin is elevated, it's literally impossible to lose fat. Because when people say I want to lose weight, they don't mean I want to lose bone strength or muscle. They want to lose fat. And you cannot lose fat if your insulin level is too high. It is physiologically impossible. And that's what was happening to you a few years back when you were eating the whole grain bread and the whole grain tortilla. You were eating everything low fat. Your insulin level was probably 30. It would be literally impossible for you to have lost fat eating that diet. It's only when you lower your total carbohydrate intake. That's the key metric, not net carbs, because a lot of the keto treat manufacturers want to talk about net carbs. You got to talk about total carbohydrates. You got to lower them to a level that's amenable to your physiology, that at some point your body says, oh, okay, our insulin's low enough now, we can burn some of this fat off and get rid of it.
Okay, so that is the general rule of thumb. Keep your carbs as close to zero as possible. Is there a difference? If I look at the back of broccoli, I think it will say that there's carbs in broccoli.
Sure.
Are broccoli carbs different than Wonder Bread carbs?
They are different, but they're also the same. Again, that complex thing we got to talk about. So when I first started doing this, I used to say you can trust the carb count in broccoli, but you cannot trust the carb count in Lucky Charms. And what I meant by that was some of the carbs in broccoli are fiber. That's absolutely true. But all of the carbs in Lucky Charms are just sugar. But that's too complicated. People can't remember that, right? They're like, I can't remember which carbs to trust. And so at some point I just said, just count total carbs. Now, the proper human diet, which is that's the way of eating that I espouse. It ranges all the way from low carb, under 100 total grams a day. And for many young people who are pretty metabolically healthy, that's perfect for them. They can do that and have an ideal body weight, have an ideal body fat percentage. Some people need to cut it down to 50 total carbs a day. Some people need to cut it down to 20 total carbs. And so you're going from low carb to keto when you do that. If you keep cutting the carbs down to as close to zero as you can get, you wind up with the carnivore diet. All these diets are on the proper human diet spectrum. Carnivore is keto. Carnivore is low carb. It's just as low carb as you can possibly get. Not everybody needs to be a carnivore. Some people can eat low carb with real whole foods, nothing from Kellogg's or Post or General Mills, and they can do fine and be very metabolically healthy. Other people like me who fatten easily and who develop prediabetes very easily, they need to go as close to zero carb as they can, and that's either ketovore or carnivore. That's where I have to live on a daily basis, or I would still weigh 297 pounds.
Say that my meat intake consists of chicken fingers at, gosh, I'm totally blanking on the name. What's the huge chicken outlet? It's not Church's anymore. It's
like KFC.
Okay, KFC or something. My favorite food when I was younger was chicken fingers. So
Sure.
Is that consistent with a carnivore or keto diet, fried chicken fingers specifically?
So your body doesn't fall for bullshit. Okay. Your body is made, literally evolution has made us where the bullshit does not float. It sinks every time. So what is a chicken finger made of? It is breaded with wheat, rice, oats, or corn, and it's fried in vegetable seed oil, soybean, canola, right? Now, there is some lean chicken meat in there, allegedly, but probably there's a little bit of lean chicken meat. If what you were eating was just chicken with the bone in and the skin on, that'd be fine. You could do carnivore with chicken, turkey, and eggs, 100%. Yeah, but when you take a piece of chicken, take all the fat out, bread it with high starch grains, and then fry it in high omega-6 vegetable seed oils, you've taken a healthy thing and made it about as unhealthy as it can possibly get. But you're right, there's millions of young men and women around the world who live on chicken strips and ketchup and then drink some kind of energy drink. And they're like, well, it's chicken. No, it's actually not. It's predominantly vegetable seed oils and grains. That's what you're eating. You're basically eating a grain canola strip. You're not eating a chicken strip. That's the problem.
And when I look at, you don't want to just trust the back of whatever the canola oil bottle says, but even independent researchers will sort of more or less corroborate the claim that you don't see calories in canola oil, and I don't believe you see any carbs, at least not in the ones that I've had. So are seed oils bad, and should they be replaced with butter, or are they more or less indifferent? If I'm getting no carbs and no calories in my seed oils, what's wrong with them?
So seed oils are zero carb. That's absolutely true. And that's why you have to be very careful with any product that's labeled keto. Okay. But seed oils are not zero calorie. They're very high in calories, just like any other fat, but calories don't really matter. The problem with vegetable seed oils is that you cannot get them in nature. And a lot of people will say, oh, that's an appeal to nature. No, actually, it's not. You cannot get a seed oil in nature. There is no human being on planet Earth that before 100 years ago had ever eaten canola oil or soybean oil or any of the other vegetable seed oils. Now, some plants you can get oil from, like olive oil, avocado, coconut. You can get oil from those just with a fire that you built on the ground and some kind of pot to put it in. You can get oil from those. And that's why those oils aren't very bad for you, because we've been eating those oils for a long damn time. But the vegetable seed oils are made in a literal chemical factory. And they're very, very high in omega-6 fatty acids like linoleic acid. These things, for most people, if not all people, are inflammatory to some degree. And so you're introducing this foreign substance into your body. And so people think, oh, that's an appeal to nature. No, it's an appeal to evolution. It matters what we've been eating for the last few million years. That matters a lot, evolutionarily speaking. Okay. So this is a scientific argument. This is not a fallacious appeal to nature. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm saying we need to eat the stuff that we've eaten for the longest amount of time on this planet. And it's not vegetable seed oils. Vegetable seed oils were invented by humans in a factory. Most of them were initially used for lubrication for machinery, which is fine, but they're not something that we've evolutionarily evolved to be able to even know what it is. And so they lead to inflammation in the human body.
One of the responses I get to, promoting the carnivore diet is, well, that's only for some people who have enough money to have ribeyes every single night. So what you're proposing is more unrealistic than the people who just say maintain a calorie deficit and exercise. Dr. Berry, how do you expect the average person to afford ribeyes every single night?
I don't think you need to afford ribeyes every single night. I actually have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel about cheap carnivore. Hot dogs and bologna. I'm about to say something very inflammatory on your podcast. I hope that's okay.
Please.
Hot dogs and bologna are not junk food. They are health foods. Wait a minute. What? Yes. If you watch the ingredients and you buy hot dogs that are just ground up meat, spices, and salt, and you buy bologna that is just ground up meat, spices, and salt, they are literal health foods. The vast majority of people these days buy hot dogs and bologna from the supermarket, right? And it's just that's where they buy all food. They don't know where food comes from. But many people are surprised when I tell them that people used to make bologna at home. You can make it at home. You can make hot dogs at home. You cannot make canola oil at home. Okay. You cannot make frosted flakes or Special K at home. You can't make that at home. You have to have a factory to make those things. Bologna is not junk food. It is a health food. It is ground up meat, spices, and salt. And so if you're on a budget like I used to be in the old days, you can absolutely carnivore with bologna and hot dogs, as long as you watch the ingredients, make sure there's not too much added sugar, and the cheap cans of salmon and tuna. The cheaper salmon and the cheaper tuna are actually healthier than the big, beautiful cuts that you see at Whole Foods that are, $82 for a 12-ounce steak of tuna or salmon. You want the tuna that are the smallest and the salmon that are the smallest, because if you eat the big ones, they've had more time to accumulate mercury and other heavy metals, but from eating thousands and thousands of other little fish. But if you get the small tuna and the small salmon, they don't have as much mercury. It's not even anything you have to worry about. So the cheap cans of tuna, the cheap cans of salmon, and the hot dogs and the bologna, and buy the ground beef, the 70-30, the cheap kind. If you buy that on sale at the supermarket, dude, and then you can buy eggs in a 30 count, right? And you get an egg for like 42 cents. Don't tell me you can't afford that. If your shopping cart is full of breakfast cereal and pasta, don't tell me you can't afford the cheap ground beef and the bologna and the hot dogs and the cheap cans of tuna and salmon, always in water, not in oil, because that's not real olive oil. Trust me. Okay. You can do that. Anybody, I don't care if you're on food stamps, if you're broke and you're like scraping around for quarters underneath the couch cushion, you can eat carnivore.
When I first started looking into this, I assumed that, well, it'll break the bank, but I'll be able to eat, I'll be satiated, and I'll be thinner, and I can just finally get new clothes. The complete opposite has happened. As expected, everything's a lie with regard to what they say about carnivore. I spend so much less money. I get as many eggs as I want and as much beef as I want. I go to Winco in Arizona, and you can get 60 eggs at a time, and you can get these 5-pound bricks of beef. And it's always, I always get variety because I'm using different spices and different hot sauces. And the hot sauces are all 0 calories. Spices are also 0. So I have total variety, and it saves me so much more money, considering when I would go to In-N-Out Burger beforehand, I would eat a burger and I was not full after that. I'd start thinking, what's the next meal? I had one patty and, 2 big buns. So what's my next meal? I spent so much more money on the food pyramid diet that got me to 290 pounds than I ever did now. I want to ask you about these. So I am against child abuse, so I refuse to hand out candy. What I did is I handed out these. It's called Cattleman's beef turkey for Halloween. This is my favorite thing to take on the road with me. I'm in Austin right now visiting my boss, Scott Horton. What are some travel foods that I could always have on me? This way I'm not in a pickle and, well, I had to get this sandwich and this bread because I had nothing else on me. I'm always strapped with those. What do you recommend to people?
So the best travel foods, if you're going to make it and take it, is boiled eggs. You can fry up a pound of bacon and put it in a Ziploc bag. You can cook up a bunch of hamburger patties and put them in a Ziploc bag. They'll keep for 2 days in a Ziploc bag if you put them in there right after, when they cool off after you cook them. You can travel with that. I've done that so many times. Another great option is to just fast. If I'm going to go to an airport, typically it's so hard. You have to literally hunt like a hunter-gatherer to find any real food in an airport. I just fast that day. But if you look hard enough, you can find boiled eggs. You can find cheese sticks that are pretty clean. I'll just go to Wendy's or McDonald's or Five Guys or whatever burger joint, and I'll buy 4 or 6 of the quarter-pound patties. Now, you have to ask them, is this 100% USDA ground beef? They'll tell you if it's not. For example, Sonic, that's a burger chain that's pretty big in my area of the country. They add mushroom, some kind of mushroom to their burger patties. It's not 100% beef, so I never go there. But if I'm in an airport and there's a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Wendy's, I'll just go get 6 hamburger quarter-pound patties, not the little, like the Big Mac patties. I don't even know what those things are made of. But the quarter-pound patty is 100% USDA ground beef, salt, and pepper. That's it. There's nothing else in there. And they don't fry those patties in canola or soybean oil. They're fried in their own fat because they're pretty much 70-30. They have the fat built into the burger patty. They fry them on the griddle. There you go. That's 100% carnivore. There's not a thing wrong with that. Contrary to some of the comments that you see on my video that got millions of views about what I eat when I'm going through the drive-through, there's no human DNA in McDonald's quarter-pound burger patties. I don't know where that came from, but there's no ground up humans in McDonald's quarter-pound patties. And I don't make any money from McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's or Five Guys or Whataburger. I'm just telling you, if you're traveling, just get quarter-pound patties. And if you need a condiment, put some mustard. They have 0-carb mustard, 0-sugar mustard. Put that on there, eat them, and you're done. And you mentioned satiety. You said I'd go to In-N-Out Burger and I'd get the value meal with the burger, the fries, and the Coke. And you would eat that, and then you were hungry an hour later. Who hasn't went to the Chinese buffet and eaten until you literally feel like your belly's going to pop? 2 hours later, what's up? You're hungry. Why? How's that possible? But when you or I eat 12 ounces or 16 ounces of ground beef and a few eggs, we're not hungry for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. How is that possible? Here's why it's possible. There are 3 macronutrients in food. There are carbohydrates, fat, and protein. Okay? Protein is the most satiating of the 3 macronutrients. That means that it keeps you feeling full for the longest amount of time. The second most filling, and it's a close second, is fat. Animal fat that occurs naturally in that hamburger patty or the egg or whatever. Fat and protein help you get full and help you stay full. Because you know as well as I do, when you're trying to lose weight, hunger is your biggest enemy. If you get hungry enough and you stay hungry enough for long enough, your ass is going to go to the cupboard and you're going to eat something. It's not a matter of willpower or stamina. It's a matter of the hunger is a built-in physiological need. If you get hungry enough, you'll eat your neighbor. This is documented in the historical literature thousands of times. When you get hungry enough, you'll do terrible things. So you can't say, oh, it's just a lack of willpower. You were just weak. No, hunger is literally, if I come to where you're at right now, Keith, and I hold your mouth and nose, after about 60 seconds, you will do literally anything, including stabbing me to get me to take my hand off your mouth and nose because you are air hungry. You're about to die. That hunger's just that primal of a need. So you can't overcome that. You have to eat the macros that are satiating, that make you full and keep you full. That's fat and protein. Carbohydrates do not do that. Now, if it's a slow release carbohydrate that's full of fiber, it sort of does that a little, but never to the degree to which fat and protein make you full and keep you full for hours and hours and hours. But fat and protein don't raise your insulin. Remember, we talked about that earlier. So you're full, you're happy, you're not hungry, and your insulin level's low. That's the perfect setup for you to effortlessly, painlessly burn off the fat and get rid of it. You're not suffering, you're not hungry, you're not starving. You're just living your life. You're playing or you're working, but your body's burning fat because you're in ketosis and you're not hungry. It's almost like it's built in to our DNA. It's almost like that's how we're designed to eat, is fat and protein, maybe carbs occasionally, but usually not.
The second biggest thing after losing the weight, feeling more comfortable everywhere I go, has to be the fact that I was exhausted, not all the time, but I would want a nap
Yep.
I would either have to take a nap during the day or I would have to just crush energy drinks and then go to bed sort of early. Getting
Yep.
like 9 hours of sleep sometimes at night, and now I get like 6.5 and I'm totally fine. I don't even
Same.
think about napping during the
Yep.
day. I have so much more energy. Is this just a coincidence, or is there a correlation between eating fewer carbs, fewer sugars, and having more energy throughout the day?
This is one of the most common things that people are surprised by when they start a real whole food ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet is crap. I used to think that I felt good most days, but I had no idea how good I could feel. And that's because when you're in ketosis, your body can burn those fats much more effectively and efficiently. When you burn carbohydrates, sugar, it's kind of like burning gasoline in your wood stove if you're heating your house. I mean, it burns, yeah, and it gets very hot and it's very flashy, but then it's gone, and then you're tired and hungry again. But when you fill your belly with animal fat and animal protein, it's like filling up your wood stove with oak or hickory. It burns slow, it burns good, it burns thoroughly, and it burns for a long damn time, and it puts off plenty of heat. And so that's exactly what you're mimicking when you eat a diet that's rich in animal fat and protein. You're going to have more energy. Many people, when they're eating a high carb diet, not only is their brain having to run on carbs, sugar, which you have to replenish about every 2 or 3 hours, or you'll crash. Then, if you eat too much sugar, you'll have to take a nap because you're in sugar coma. When you convert that person to burning ketones, their brain is like, "Thank you very much. Now I can actually perform at optimal levels. I'm not going to crash in 30 minutes and need a snack." But also levels of brain inflammation when you remove the seed oils and all of the highly processed carbs. People with quite severe mental health disorders notice improvement in their mental health symptoms. And there's actually multiple research studies going on right now about a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet for mental health, for diagnosable conditions like depression, anxiety, OCD, even schizophrenia, because psychiatrists, they're having patients come to them and say, since I've been on this carnivore diet, I haven't needed my medication for depression or anxiety or even OCD or schizophrenia. And, initially the psychiatrists are like, just an anecdote. That doesn't mean anything. But after a psychiatrist is seeing 100 patients come in and say, when I started carnivore, I don't need my medicine anymore, they're going to start to look into that, just like primary care doctors are starting to look into it for prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, obesity, hypertension, because you can only hear that so many times before you have to think as a professional and a scientist, maybe this is not just anecdotes. Maybe there's something physiological and biochemical going on here. And indeed there is. And I think in a few years, it'll be self-evident to everybody that a low carbohydrate diet is the proper human diet for every human on the planet. It's going to overtake and engulf the mainstream narrative that we have right now, which is completely incorrect, because it works. And because we've got this thing called social media now, that when we try keto or carnivore and it literally gives us miraculous results, you're like, what the hell just happened to my body? How am I the same Keith Knight that I was 5 years ago? I don't even understand what's happened here. You're going to get on social media and talk about that. And people who know you and trust you, you're not just a head on a YouTube video. You're actually, that's Keith. I know him. He did this. They're going to be like, crap, look at him. I'm going to give this a try. And that's why I think it's inevitable that this is going to just become common knowledge. Everybody's going to know, and we'll reach a tipping point here in the next year or two where it's just common knowledge. If you're fat, if you're obese and you want to lose weight, go on a low carb diet. If you go low carb and that's not working, go keto. If that's not working, go carnivore. At some level of carbohydrate intake, you're going to start to burn fat while remaining full and happy, not being hungry and hangry and pissed off because you're starving to death.
I didn't know enough about the whether it's autoimmune disorders or brain inflammation. I assume my mental health was getting better from carnivore because I was thinner and women actually started talking to me. So
There's
it's hard
also
for me
that.
to isolate the mental health variable specifically. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what caused what caused what, but it is just so much better feeling
Yeah.
good. And thank you for retweeting my image the other day. I posted my before and after picture on Twitter. X now, and I came across that first image of me. That was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. I'm in front of medieval times with my sister, and I literally look like John Candy's body double or something like that. It's just so embarrassing. Okay, so you've convinced me. You've also convinced the members of the audience. How do you pitch this to other people without them getting defensive, while piquing their interest and giving them an open mind? What are some of the things you say to the average person you come across to pitch them on the keto, carnivore, low carb lifestyle?
It depends on where they're coming from. As you know, there's different categories of people. Some are pioneers, some are early adapters, some are late adapters, some are the cow's tail. Some people, they're just not ready to hear it yet. And so I'm very happy if I start getting pushback from them. I'm like, oh, okay, go live your life. I'll see you in a year or two after you have a heart attack scare or something. You'll be back around. And indeed, that's happened. But most people, especially the pioneers and the early adapters and even the late adapters, they're getting to a point now where they've seen before and after pictures like yours. They've seen that again and again and again. And underneath that before and after is either the word keto or the word ketovore or the word carnivore. And they're like, crap, what is going on with this? Because people who know Keith, they know he's not a paid spokesman for the keto company or the carnivore company. That's not what he does. And so that's just like the old school word of mouth. That's just like the old school back, 100,000 years ago when we would all go out and hunt and gather, and we'd come around the campfire in the evening and we would talk about what we had learned that day. Don't eat that plant. It'll give you the shits. Don't try to take down that animal with just one person or you'll get your ass, gored or whatever. And we learn from each other. That's how humans work. We come around the campfire and we discuss our wins and our losses, and we learn from each other. And that's what social media is basically become, this gigantic campfire that there's millions, if not billions of us sitting around saying, well, I tried this and it worked great and I feel great and it's still working. Versus people saying, yeah, I tried this and it didn't work. Or I wasted a bunch of money, or I wasted a bunch of time. And so that's what social media is this giant campfire. We all come around and tell our stories. And so what I try to do is keep it simple. Step one, eliminate all added sugar and most naturally occurring sugar. Bananas and grapes are not a health food. They're sacks of sugar. Step two, eliminate all the grains and beans from your diet. These are starvation foods. These are prisoner foods. These are slave foods. This is not what you eat if you're trying to optimize your health. Step three, eliminate the vegetable seed oils. They're made in a factory. Humans were never exposed to them before 100 years ago. They're, by definition, they cannot be evolutionarily healthy. Step four, fill up most or all of your plate with beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And it can be it can be chicken, it can be poultry, it can be fish. It doesn't matter. As long as it's the meat or the egg of something that used to run, creep, fly, crawl, slither, jump. That's what human beings have always eaten. That's what we'll always need to eat. Maybe in 100,000 years of more of evolution, we can eat a vegan diet and be optimally healthy. But right now, that's impossible. Even the vegan experts will tell you, vegan diet's the healthiest diet on the planet. But also you need to take these 10 supplements every day or you'll develop a severe vitamin or mineral deficiency. How can that be a proper human diet by definition? 500 years ago, there was no supplement company. Do you think there were any vegans more than 500 years ago? No, there were zero vegans. The plant-based movement, which is dying, by the way, the vegan movement, which is dying, by the way, you can look on Google Trends. It's literally straight down. Everybody has had it with the vegan movement. There was no such thing. That is the vegan, whole food, plant-based. That is a hobby for people who live in a wealthy society. If you went back in time 100,000 years and went to your tribe, your great-great-grandfather times 100, and you said, hey, we should just eat plants only, you would either be stabbed or kicked out of the tribe, because they would just know intuitively that's ignorance. What are you talking about? You will die if you try to eat nothing but plants long term. That's ignorance. What are you even talking about? Get out of here. You're no longer part of this tribe.
One of the amazing things is that people will say, if you want to, stop the obesity epidemic in America, this is a big thing. So big things take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of, government committees, a lot of doctors appointments. You have to do something big for a big problem. The concept that this can actually be solved by conversations on YouTube and people just eating this proper human diet is so hard for people to grasp intellectually. They're like, how is the solution to this huge problem? Videos that are already online for free. But that's how I heard about it. Basically, I had asked, there's a reason I'm telling the story. I asked this woman out, and she kind of laughed at me and said, someone as good looking as me couldn't go out with someone as fat as you. That's basically what she said to me.
Oh, okay.
So I went onto YouTube and I just binged weight loss foods, weight loss diets. And I bet I watched 300 or something like that, something crazy. And I just took notes, and then I came across your channel and Gravity Transformation Fat Loss Experts. You know those guys?
Yep.
That they are just terrific. So my pitch to people is, usually people are able to see through one scam or something. Sometimes it's the Russiagate scam or whatever current scam is going on in the media. I say, there's another scam. You're not going to believe it. The food pyramid is what's making us fat. The advice they gave us is what ended up making us fat. There's a real simple alternative. When it comes to where you recommend people to start, is it on a certain playlist at your YouTube channel? Is it one of your books? If you've grabbed people's interest already, they see your transformation, they say, all right, what do you lead me to? What videos, what websites?
If you love vegetables, and you've got to have some vegetables in your diet, then my YouTube playlist entitled Keto 101. Just go and watch those videos, take notes, just like Keith did. That's going to work for you, I promise. If you're like, dude, I could live on meat and eggs and be 100% happy for the rest of my life, then go to my YouTube channel and watch my Carnivore 101 playlist. Now, some people are like, you and I, Keith, they're lone mountain lions. They don't need a group. We're perfectly happy just doing it ourselves. Some people need support. Their family members don't support them. Their spouse doesn't support them. Their friends won't support them. They try to trip them up. And so we've actually created a community of people who are eating a proper human diet. So if you're stuck in that situation, like my spouse won't help me, they're trying to bring honey buns home and give them to me, and you need that level of support, we have a private community on my website, drbarry.com/community. It's a very small price if you need that kind of support. Many people don't. I don't think Keith would need that kind of support. He's a mountain lion. He does his own thing. He thinks. Some people need that support. They need a friend. They need somebody that they can share their victories and their struggles and their defeats with, and somebody who will take them by the hand. We've got that. If you need that, check out our community. But most people, if you just watch my Keto 101 videos and apply it, or watch my Carnivore 101 videos and apply it, you can literally reverse your metabolic disease for free. It doesn't cost a penny. You don't have to pay me a penny. You can just watch the videos and apply what I say. Now, keep in mind, calories don't matter.
Yeah.
Portion size does not matter. And I have to say that because for so many people, that narrative is so deep in their psyche that they can't understand that's not true. It's a literal myth. When you weigh on the bathroom scales, you're weighing atoms and molecules. You're not weighing energy. The reason you weighed 290 something pounds was not because you had too much stored energy. It's because you had too many damn atoms and molecules in your fat ass. That's why. That's what the scale was weighing. When you eat a real whole food ketogenic diet, not the keto treats and keto bread and keto bars, but real whole keto food, like I talk about in Keto 101, you're going to eat less total atoms, less total molecules without being hungry. You don't have to portion control because the animal fat and animal protein are going to keep you full for a long time. Does that make sense? And so a lot of people come at keto or carnivore and they're like, oh, I'm just eating 1,000 calories a day. No, stop that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to pay penance. You don't have to atone for your sins. That's not what happened here. You're not sinful. You were just misled. You don't have to pay atonement. You don't have to say your Hail Marys. You just have to eat meat and eggs until you're comfortably stuffed and then go outside and play. It's literally that simple, although I know that sounds like that can't possibly work. I promise you, try 90 days of beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. I've got a video that's about that challenge. You can eat as much as you want. You can eat as often as you want. And if you're obese or severely obese and you eat nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, don't calorie count, don't portion control, eat when you're hungry, eat till you're full, you're going to lose a chunk of weight, aka you're going to lose a lot of fat in that 90 days, but you're also not going to be starving to death. You're not going to be hangry. You're not going to need to take a nap after every meal. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be happier. Happiness comes across as attractiveness, as Keith now knows. When you're happy and healthy, that's very attractive to the sex that you're trying to attract.
Thank you so much for coming on. Oh, one more thing before I forget. Don't be afraid to ask for extra patties when you're at any restaurant, people. I still go to Wendy's and YC's. I go to Red Robin and Chili's, and I just say, I'll get this burger with no bun and 4 extra patties.
100%.
I still do cheese. Is cheese okay, or am I violating?
Most cheese is fine. Some people have to limit cheese, but the vast majority of people can have a slice of cheese on their burger. It's not going to slow them down at all.
Awesome. So the website is drbarry.com. Dr. Barry, give me one book people should check out. I know you have 3. If I only have time for one, what one book of yours should I read?
Lies My Doctor Told Me. I think that opens your eyes to so many things with regards to medicine and human nutrition. Once you read that book, you kind of get the big picture.
Thanks to everyone for watching Keith and I Don't Tread on Anyone and the Libertarian Institute. Dr. Barry, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.